Oh, damn it!
I did not mean to play that right away. Well, that sort of sums it up. That's Geeks with Kids. Have a good night, guys. Hey. No, welcome to Geeks with Kids, the sometimes bi-weekly podcast. In the process of going straight to GWK so that we can include our non-kids friends in this title.
Oh, are we going KFC?
We're going KFC, man.
Can I point something out?
But yeah.
Can I point something out really quick to everybody?
Yeah.
That technically, since we were supposed to record last week and now we're doing it this week again, we're actually not even supposed to be here today.
We're not even supposed to be here. You're not even supposed to be here today. Oh, that's a very timely quote because we're talking about Clerks, the trilogy, because Clerks 3 just came out on VOD on rental. So, we had the chance to all watch it. I saw it in theaters. I think Brent got to see it in theaters as well.
Yes, you got to go to a big fancy do about it.
No, it wasn't a fancy do. All Cineplex had events because it wasn't a regularly screening movie.
I would have liked to have done that. Andrew and I went to the Red State premiere in Toronto.
Oh yeah,
and we sat right behind him through the whole movie. Like we were, I think, a row behind him. Which was pretty fucking cool.
Just throwing popcorn the whole time, right?
What are you doing to our emotional state?
I wish we wanted to go up and talk to him afterwards, but as soon as the event was over, he booked it out of there. But Andrew ended up having like a 20-minute conversation with his assistant. I think what was her name, Megan at the time. I think
Megan.
Yeah, he chatted with her for like 20 minutes afterwards.
The last time I saw Kevin Smith live was in Brantford, and it was one of the last times he did the Wayne Gretzky, the tournament. Not the Wayne Gretzky, the Walter Gretzky.
Walter Gretzky
tournament. And I saw a show, and I ended up talking to the only Asian guy there I saw, and I was like, this guy's really Ming? Nice. It was Ming. I was like, why the fuck is there an Asian guy in Brantford right now? So it was nice. It was really like he hadn't really joined Tell 'Em Steve Dave yet. So it was just the other three guys. And Ming was sort of about behind the scenes. You'd occasionally hear him. So I didn't realize it was him. Also, speaking of Ming, it was awesome seeing him in the movie. So we're talking about Clerks 3 and then the whole Clerks trilogy, really how we got into Kevin Smith movies in general. So, hello, Vocal Tomes. Welcome to our chat.
Hey, Brittany.
Yeah.
In Ming we trust indeed.
Yeah. And, like we do every week, we're going to talk about what we're liking right now. What's our yum, guys? Let's start with Brent. I know you have two. Why don't you start with one and we'll go back over to you at the second.
Okay, well, no, one of them I'm just going to talk about like really, really briefly. It's a game that I just started playing last night called The Darkest Tales. I streamed it for a couple hours. I fucking fell in love with it. You play a teddy bear who is brought to life to help save the girl who you are her favorite toy, and you're brought to life to help save her out of her nightmare world. But her nightmare world consists of nightmarish versions of classic fairy tales. So in the first level of the game, you're fighting against Little Red Riding Hood as she's trying to slaughter all the wolves. And then you go off to fight Jack and the Beanstalk. And then it's Peter Pan in Neverland. And it's just this really like crazy transcendence of like just destroying fairy tales in a violent manner. And it's
What's
so
the game
much
called
fun.
again?
Darkest Tales.
Darkest Tales.
Came out early access last December. The full version just released last week. So. And it's very beautiful game. It looks exactly like Ori in the Ori series. Like it's shot very similar to that. So
I was going to ask if it had a similar feel to the Alice games.
I've never played the Alice games.
Oh.
All I say is like the feel is it's very Ori. It's very mystical, very colorful, whimsical. Like
it looks gorgeous. Like the screenshots I'm looking at right now. What's the price on it? Do you recall?
I think it was just under or around $20. I think I paid $22 or something on Steam.
That's well worth an Ori type game. Fuck, I'll get it. You have it on PC, not on
Yeah, so I got it through Steam.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was on.
I believe it's only available on Steam. So
all right. Well, it says it's also coming to Nintendo Switch. So
it definitely feels like a Switch game, 100%.
Awesome. All right. Since we're talking about the Switch anyway, let's go over to shows.
Okay, yeah. So I am ready.
Yeah.
So I've been playing a lot of Fire Emblem in the last little bit. I picked up a copy of Fire Emblem 3 Houses back in 2019, and it kind of just sat in the case for a while. I played it a little bit and then I put it away. Over the last couple of weeks, I played all the way through one of the storylines. There are 3 different storylines in that game. I had a blast with it. The voice acting was incredible, and just it's that kind of tactics gameplay that you would get from like a the like Tactics Ogre or like Advance Wars and those styles of games, right? It's like Fire Emblem goes all the way back to was it the NES or was it SNES?
Let's say NES.
It goes all the way back, but
I'm so uneducated on this series. The only thing I know about Fire Emblem is that's where that Jared Leto looking guy from all the Smash Brothers games is from.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of Smash Bros. Fire Emblem characters, every game has its own like unique set of characters. So if you do see one Fire Emblem character in something, it might be from any one of the games that have appeared up to this point. But there's going to be a new game coming out in January that I'm excited about called Fire Emblem Engage, which I think should be pretty cool to play.
Is it the marriage one where they all get, it's a dating sim? You're like,
it's a dating sim.
Engage.
Actually, you're not
Patrick Stewart one. Engage.
You're not too far off on the dating sim part because between missions you are trying to like build up support points between characters, and at the end of the game you can actually marry a character.
It's like Persona.
Yeah, kind of like that. And I've also started playing Fire Emblem Warriors, which is kind of like a
like
Dynasty Warriors, like Hyrule Warriors. Those games. So they took the characters and the storyline from Fire Emblem Three Houses, and they made a Warriors game called Fire Emblem Three Hopes, which is pretty cool. I've been getting into that one too. Me and my son can play that together, split screen, just run around and kill things, and having a blast with that as well. So nice to get hooked on a franchise that it's been around for a while, but you really haven't gotten into. So having some fun with that.
Nice. The first one was in 1990 and on the NES, so we were correct in our assumption. It was called Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light.
I love it.
They love those long ass titles. Honestly, I've never played any of them. So
the second game was titled Fire Emblem Gaiden.
That's much shorter.
If I could mention really quickly too that the Fire Emblem, I'm denied.
No, go for it.
The Fire Emblem games were among the first that included like a permadeath feature for all the characters in it. So the idea is, at least in the original games, if you brought a group of characters onto the map and one of your characters died, they were just done. They weren't going to respawn afterwards. They were gone. So you could have, 10 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours with a character, learning about the character, getting a relationship with the character, figuring out the character's backstory, and then the character just
fucking Aerith.
Yeah, wow. I was gonna say Aerith was the first time I ever remember a main character dying, and it scarred me to now.
So they have made the more recent games a little bit more casual. You have the option to choose that when the characters die. No, yeah. You get
who
to
dies?
Who lives,
pick the
who
son
lives
that
and who
lives.
dies.
House of Dragons, like.
So
Fire
it
Emblem
will
4, Sophie's Choice.
Oh my god.
The characters will come back at the end of the level if you play this sort of casual mode, which is nice. That's how I play it because I'm too much of a wuss to see these characters die. I want them to all live happily ever after.
I just want them to be happy. I understand because I'm playing Gotham Knights, the new Batman game over on PC. And you know what? Honestly, I'm liking it. I've played about 11, 12 hours. I'm playing as Nightwing, Gotham's ass, as people say. Ass because it's a beautiful ass, not because he's a dick. Although he is also a dick because he's named... he's Dick Grayson. Anyway, I thought it was actually pretty good. It's still pretty fun from where I am. People are comparing it to the Batman games, and none of these people are Batman, so they can't move like him.
Yeah.
He can't. They're not like super ninjas, and the Robin that they have in it isn't Damian, so it's not like they have a mini version of him. If they had Damian, I would fully expect a mini Batman. Also, I've also very much been enjoying House of Dragon. And
that sounds like 2 yums.
Yeah, no, I did. I told you can have 2. I'm going to do 2 as well. And it just finished last night. And I think we're going to be doing a fantasy episode in a couple of weeks because I want to talk about Rings of Power. I want to talk about House of Dragon.
Good call.
So it's another high time of fantasy. High time. Yeah. All right. Hawk, bring us home.
All right, so I've only got one yum this week. It's a series on FX I've been watching called The Patient. It stars Steve Carell and Domhnall Gleeson. It is the story of Alan Strauss, played by Steve Carell, who wakes up one morning to find himself in a strange basement and that with a chain around his leg.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
does he have a beard?
Wait,
he does have a beard.
Okay, so serious.
I think this was your yum, the last one we did.
I think it was too.
Wait, was it?
Yeah.
I remember you talking about this.
Yeah, and then we talked about the beard thing.
Because I remember we talked about Domhnall Gleeson, and that got me talking about the movie About Time.
That's how much he loves it. It's a double yum.
I have totally forgotten this was my yum that previous time. I'm so sorry. It's just that it's coming to a conclusion on Tuesday, and
that's how good it is. Just watch it.
It's such a short series. Like it's a half hour long, and by the time you are so wrapped into the story and that, and then the cut ends, and you're just like kind of kicking your seat. As I explained, Domhnall Gleeson plays his patient, Sam Ross, who kidnapped him because he is a serial killer, and he is dead intent on trying to stop, more or less.
Jeez, I mean, I like Domhnall Gleeson.
He's fantastic in this.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like outlandish serial killer. He's a guy with a rage issue, in that he also happens to be a health inspector who interacts with the public on a daily basis, and
that explains why.
I would imagine anyone who's a health inspector has got some kind of serial killer element to them.
Exactly. Do you have another one if you want to? Because you've talked about this show before. I stole your House of Dragon. I'm sorry.
That's okay. The only other series I've watched so far is The Watcher on Netflix.
I started watching that today because of you. I don't understand the style. Like, is it supposed to be funny or is it supposed to be dark? It's like, it feels like that Kristen Bell show about with all the wine. I don't remember what it's called.
Bit. Yeah. It's definitely not on the funny side of it and that, but it's an examination of home ownership and society in America right now. A couple that buy this magnificent home. It's just palatial, old colonial, the kind of home that they just do not make anymore in that. It's based on a true story, so keep this in mind, but they start receiving letters, and these letters first start out very flattering about them in the house, and then become very creepy and start almost becoming threatening, and that telling them that the house demands blood. And on top of that, people are coming in and out of the house, and they have no idea where, how, or what's going on.
What's funny is that when I started watching this show, Megan was like, "Oh, I remember reading this on Reddit years ago," and then that thread got updated, and they're making it into a TV show. I was like, "Oh my god, it's."
Which now begs the question: how long before Reddit gets its own movie studio?
I'm sure it's in the works. Why wouldn't they? They have the best stories, and
you've got the writing.
They have the rights to all of our stuff on there. The Kristen Bell show I was talking about is The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window. Music by Nami Melamood, and it's amazing.
Yeah. That one's more satire than that. This one also kind of feeds into our true crime kind of obsession in podcast. The universe these days, and that it's a mystery that's been going on for years because they have never really found anybody who kind of took credit for being the so-called watcher, and that the person addressed at the end of the letters.
Well, now you just ruined the whole show for me. Damn, Hawk. Brent, did you want to do your second one?
Yes. So this is now this is not Terrifier as we've discussed. If you want to, we'll talk about that separately afterwards, but. No, this is one that was going to be my yum last week. This is a show that I just discovered that I don't know how I missed, and ended up, as soon as I found it, I binged the first season in one night. It's only 6 episodes. It's on HBO. It's Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal.
What is this?
Yeah, that was my exact reaction when I heard that Nathan Fielder had another TV show. It is fucking brilliant. It's essentially, he has taken the format from Nathan For You and evolved it into a full documentary series where now he's offering services to people who are having trouble having difficult conversations with people, or revealing secrets. So he creates this ultra fabricated lie where he hires actors to play parts in it and creates like sets and based around your life. Also, that he can help you rehearse every possible scenario that might come up from you telling someone this secret. Like in the first episode, the secret is this guy is in part of a bar trivia team and he lied about having a master's degree. And he's afraid that they're going to react poorly when he tells them. So he literally recreates inch by inch every little bit this bar that they do trivia in, hires a bunch of actors to fill the place in, hires an actress who the one friend he's really worried is going to overreact, hires someone to basically follow her around, learn everything they can about her so that she can accurately portray her in this scenario, and just rehearse him telling her over and over and over again to get him ready to actually do it. And the level of absurdity that it goes to is unreal. And then starting in the second episode, they create a storyline that runs throughout the entire season about a woman who isn't sure if she wants to have kids. So he creates a dream home for her, and every week supplies her with child actors that will play her kids from infant all the way up to 18, aging them up 3 years every week. And again, just because of all of the laws around it and just how he gets around it is just, it's so good. I cannot stress how ingenious and wonderful this show is. And like, it's dark at times too. Like, it's very dark. It's very introspective. Like, it poses a lot of questions, but it's also absolutely fucking hysterical.
That sounds amazing, and I'm going to download that tonight.
It's 6 episodes. It was a really quick watch. It's about 3 hours, a little over 3 hours.
The show you were talking about is called The Rehearsal. It's on HBO, yes?
Yeah. Yes.
Taffy has 2 yums, and they're both good, so I'm going to say them. The first one is the Cyberpunk show, which is the anime that's on Netflix. It's amazing. It does not have a second season announced, which makes me really upset. And then another show that hasn't gotten a second season announcement, The Sandman. We did an episode about The Sandman a couple of weeks ago. I think it was just me and Hawk, right?
Yes, it was.
That was like, the only two that watched it.
That was really good. We could have talked for longer, and we had to cut ourselves off because that show's amazing. And what they did to that show, Neil Gaiman needs his hands on all of his projects because American Gods was unfortunate.
A shit show.
It was a shit show. I was randomly in the background in one of those shows.
Good Omens got picked up for season 2, starting to film in a couple months.
They're done filming.
I thought they were just I thought they only just announced that they were going to start filming.
They announced it last year.
Oh, okay.
It's actually based on a lot of the writings that Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman did back in the 90s, but they didn't really want to go forward with it. So I'm glad that they're taking his ideas and still making it into something. So good on them. It's always nice to see David Tennant on TV, right? Right for those
hell yeah.
those people who got spoiled on Twitter last night.
And Michael Sheen.
Michael Sheen's a joy in everything he does.
He is.
If Sandman doesn't get a second season, people will shit. They will shit.
I mean,
it's expensive.
Why the Last Girl didn't get a second season? Paper Girls didn't get a second season.
Why the Last Man did not get good ratings? Sandman was the number 1 show for like 2 months, which is actually really good for retention sake.
Why the Last Man was badly timed, really badly timed.
Who premieres a pandemic show during a pandemic?
The Stand.
Also, The Stand was bad. So
The Stand was not good.
Was bad.
Yeah, that was just a bad show. Why the Last Man was actually pretty good. They canceled it before it finished.
The Stand was a great pilot episode, and then
the pilot was good. The first episode was Anyway, let's. Oh shit! I have all of this. The Stream Element stuff for the Magic Spoon. Don't go to the Magic Spoon link.
What is this?
You forgot to take the promo down?
I forgot to take it off. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about Clerks, the Clerks trilogy. But first, let's talk about Kevin Smith, the man who made the Askewniverse. I know we're all Kevin Smith fans, obviously, or at least we've been fans of his throughout the years. At some point, we may have fallen in and out, especially during his Yoga Hosers days, but that's we're not talking about that. I really want to know how you guys got into Kevin Smith. Like, what was your first film? How did you discover it? did you become a really diehard after that? That like so many Kevin Smith fans have become? Let's start with Hawk. Let's start with Hawk.
Hey, so I guess I'm like the original here in that my first viewing was Clerks. That was 94. It was on VHS. I don't remember how I heard about it. I know I was really into indie film at this time and that. Like in 92 after I saw Reservoir Dogs, it's like my whole view on Hollywood just kind of changed in that. It's like had to go just looking for like the next kind of hot indie release and that, or dark underground subject and that. Somehow because it got a lot of press in that in like, the typical formats of the time, magazine. I never saw anything about it on television. Somehow I ended up watching it and I fell in love with this movie. It was one of the funniest things. I never thought like somebody could pull off something like this, especially when you start reading about it. It had like something like a $10,000 budget for completion.
I think it was 15, wasn't it? It was a credit card.
The whole Clerks budget?
Yeah.
Yeah, the entire Clerks budget.
32,000.
Oh, they talk about it in the movie. Sort of. Clerks 3.
It was like 32 to 35,000 or something like that. It might have been actually, no, I think it might have been 37,000, and that's where that number came from.
Okay.
But then that might just be revisionist history here because of that number. So
yeah. After that,
in a row?
$27,575.
Okay, so somewhere around the middle there. After that, I was hooked, and Mallrats was kind of on my radar again. A few years later, saw it in the theater. I loved it. Maybe didn't have. I think it didn't get as big a reception as it should have gotten at the time, and that because people were like, "Oh, the indie filmmakers moved on to a big budget and blah blah blah."
Yeah,
it's still a great movie and funny, right? Michael Rooker in that film.
God, chocolate pretzels, my friend.
And also, he ended up launching so many careers in that. What's his face?
Ben Affleck.
Jason Lee. Ben Affleck, obviously. That
Joey
was,
Lauren. Joey Lauren.
Right.
I think Joey Lauren was already somewhat established, but
same. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. She had Days of Confused before that.
So did Ben Affleck.
SFW. So
SFW. Fair.
But what was interesting is that he evolved after that with his next round of films and that, like Chasing Amy and Dogma and that. Mm-hmm. And they're both they reached a little higher than just the usual dumb comedy in that. They were comedic, they were funny in that, but he was also trying to,
It was the first time he was like, I have a voice as a filmmaker and I have something to say, but I'm going to say it in the way you all like to hear it, in the comedic tone.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how well Chasing Amy holds up now in that, but it does. It does.
It does for us as fans. I wonder how it holds up in the LGBTQ community.
That was what I was always wondering.
Brittany, you're in the chat. Tell us.
but that's. How does it hold up in the LGBT community versus like with someone who's in the community who watched it back then versus someone who's in the community now watching it for the first time?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like the movie Bros. Like I saw it and I liked it a lot. Like it just came out.
I just watched it last night. I loved it.
But I want to know how it feels in the LGBTQ community. We'll talk about that later. Yes. So the evolution of Kevin Smith, and then he did a road trip movie after that.
Right. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Oh, let's. I'm gonna go around and at least see what our first films were first. But we can talk about his filmography after. Brent, what was your first movie, and how'd you get into him?
Oh God, my introduction to him is slightly embarrassing. So the first introduction I had to him, so the first interaction that I had to him or notification of him was, if everyone remembers, 3D Magic Eye posters.
This is the exact same story I'm going to tell.
So I was obsessed with those when they came out. And I remember seeing someone in my high school had some kind of magazine, and it had one of those 3D Eye posters in it. And I was sitting there staring at this thing for ages before I finally saw it. When you finally focused in and saw it, it was an ad for Mallrats, obviously because of the sailboat in it. So that was my first real indication of this is clever marketing. I really like this. But my first time actually watching one of his movies was Mallrats. Mm-hmm. And this is the embarrassing part. So I have a friend of mine sold me a VCR for like $5, and it was this massive, like clunky, weighed 400 pounds piece of shit thing. But it had these little dials on the top for you to like track in and out on certain channels. So I found out that if you put on the movie networks and all the scramble channels and you focus that dial in just right, it descrambles them.
Nice.
So
what kind of movie were you watching?
Like what kind of movies would have to be scrambled for viewership?
So I'm going through that, and then the very first movie that I descrambled and sat down and watched was Mallrats.
That's amazing.
It was on the movie network, and as soon as I was watching it for a while, and I was no recollection to the poster, but I was just like, this movie's fucking hilarious. I love this. This is so good. And then I got to the schooner thing, and suddenly like that little thing clicked in. I'm like, the fucking Magic Eye poster. Yeah. Holy shit. I've been wanting to see this movie, and like no idea that I was currently watching it.
That's amazing.
So I missed about the first like half an hour of it. So I ended up like waiting for it to come back on and re-scrambled it and like fix it, and then sat down and watched the entire thing. And then after that, I had stumbled upon Clerks somehow. I think a friend of mine rented it and we watched it. Again, no association between the two. Didn't even dawn on me, the Jay and Silent Bob thing. No association. And then eventually I saw Chasing Amy, and it was like one that just looked interesting, and I rented it. And it still no association. And it wasn't until I was like, I told my parents, I said, hey, I just watched this really great movie last night. I think you guys would really like. To my two very, very Catholic parents. It's a movie called Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
And we sat down and watched it as a family. And it was, as we were doing that, I went, I've made a mistake. This was not a good idea. Yeah. But it was as I was watching it in that moment, and I'm starting to pick out other things, I'm like, wait a minute. These two guys are in every single... Hang on. And that's when I finally realized that these three movies were all done by the same guy. And I was like, what else has he done?
That's amazing.
And at that point, Dogma had just come out. So I ran out and got Dogma immediately. And at that point, it was just like, I was a hardcore fan for life.
That's amazing. That's a great story. I want to actually touch upon the two, one thing. TMN, or the movie network, which is what Brent was talking about. It's sort of like the HBO in Canada for all the people that are in the States.
I believe it was still called First Choice at the time.
I remember that too.
Yeah.
Is TMN still around? Does anyone know? I don't remember.
I think it is. It's all on demand now, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, weird.
And there's like 10 channels or something. Like
there's like an 80s channel and a 70s channel.
Yeah,
like that. That sounds cool. There's a couple first times in the chat, like their first time watching a Kevin Smith movie. Vocal Tomes wrote, I'm pretty sure it was Dogma, when she was 5.
Oh no,
so young. She's so young.
Yeah, which amazing. And then SMK wrote he saw Dogma in high school and then watched all of Kevin Smith, which is amazing. Shos, what about you? What was your first time?
So my uncle was I don't know if I've ever shared this in the podcast before, but my grandparents owned a video store when I was growing up.
I think you did. You did.
And even as a young kid, I would work there sometimes and, help sign out movies. And we had to rewind the movies because they were all on VHS and all that kind of stuff. And my uncle worked there as well. And he was, I kind of idolized him for his knowledge of all the cool movies and stuff. And I was a young kid. I was maybe 12, 13 years old. And sometimes I would get to go visit my uncle at his place. And one time I remember going to play video games with him. And we were playing Turtles in Time on his Genesis. And I looked up on the wall and I see these posters. He's got a poster for Clerks and a poster for Mallrats, and they're right on either side of his TV. And I hadn't seen either of the movies before. I was just like 13 or something. And so I ended up renting Mallrats the next day. And that was actually one of the bonuses of having a family video store. I just take it home for free and I wouldn't have to pay or anything. And I watched that and I loved it. And I watched, I think I watched Chasing Amy next. And I think I watched Clerks third. And then Dogma and then onward. But I know we're gonna
16 at this time because Chasing Amy came out in 97.
Is that when it did?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's roughly about the time that would have came out. I remember seeing Dogma and Jane Silent Bob Strike Back. I remember seeing those in the theater. Yeah. But everything else I saw on TV, whether it be on VHS or DVD or something.
Well, Dogma came out when we were 18, and Jane Silent Bob came out when we were 20. So perfect.
Yeah, I think Strike Back was the first one that I saw in theaters, and I think I think it was me and Andrew Noble went to every Kevin Smith movie that came out together.
Nice.
Like that was like our thing for the longest time. Is anytime a new movie of his came out, we went together.
Mm-hmm. Nice. That's really funny. For me, my story sort of is like Brent's. There was a local movie theater, and they had the Mallrats poster out front, and I was like, Magic Guy, and I was just drawn to it because it's Magic Guy. How could you not want to do it? I did not ever see it. I don't know why. Was it an actual schooner on there? I don't.
No. The actual poster it said Mallrats on it.
That's it. There was nothing in the in between. Oh God, I sat there for so long just trying to see it. And I was like, I don't see anything. All I see are these two guys on the front, and I was enamored by it. So I was like, I'm gonna see this movie when it comes out. It's probably cool. It has a Magic Guy poster. How could it not be? And it never went to that movie theater. Never. So I sat there and I was like, where did this movie go? And then I finally saw it on VHS at our local, video store called That's Entertainment. And I rented it, and I was like, holy shit, this is hilarious. I was 16, I think, at the time when I saw it. Probably 16. I'll go with that. No, probably 15, because it was before Chasing Amy. And then I was like, fuck yeah, this is amazing. And so we started talking about it at school, in high school, and we're like, yeah, this movie's amazing. And one of our friends had watched it already and found Clerks, so he started passing around the VHS to all of our friends, and we all ended up watching Clerks, and we're like, holy shit, this is way better than Mallrats. I love Mallrats, but Clerks was like a revelation because it was totally different than we had ever seen before. And then we ended up seeing Chasing Amy later, again on VHS, because it never came out in theaters from what I remember for us, at least in St. Catharines.
There was a lot of controversy around it, which was kind of ridiculous in that because it didn't really feature any sex or any nudity. It was just talking. It was just the actual subject matter alone. People were just freaking out about.
Ridiculous.
I remember like the first time I watched Clerks, I was just so in love with it by the end of it and just so blown away by it. Mm-hmm. And my buddy looked at me and said, that was the worst movie I've ever seen. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's brilliant. He's like, they didn't do anything. And it never dawned on me watching the movie that they didn't ever do anything in the movie. But I don't
that's
care.
What's amazing about it. It's just it was like normal people. We'll talk about when we get to Clerks. And then I ended up seeing Dogma. Like as soon as that, I was like, fuck, I have to see this movie in theater. And it was the first time I ever saw a Kevin Smith movie in theater. It was amazing. People were protesting outside. It was only the second time that I'd seen a protest outside of a movie. The other one was
Passion of the Christ.
No, I didn't see it.
No, nobody ever protested
that. Had buses of people going to it. No, it was the one with Christian Bale, American Psycho.
Oh,
you're kidding. They protested that.
That book was very big in Paul Bernardo's life. So being from St. Catharines, that was not down.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of whether or not I saw, because I saw that movie in theaters too with a couple of people, and I don't think I remember. We walked out of that movie.
The closest movie theater that had that was Niagara Falls or Burlington. Like it was nowhere in between.
Yeah. I saw that one with Andrew Jeff. I think we walked out. I think we all universally did not like American Psycho.
I was enthralled because I wanted to know why it was so, reviled in my city and controversial. So, anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about lighter subjects. Kevin Smith. So after I saw Dogma, I saw it with my friends. I ended up going with my younger sister to Jane Silent Bob Strike Back because I had introduced her to Mallrats and all that when I was a teenager. So she's also a big Kevin Smith fan, and I like that that's something that we can share together. My older sister does not like it.
Did you see the picture of Kevin Smith actually joining the protesters outside of with dog?
There's video. You can find the video on YouTube.
He's standing there with a sign or whatever.
Yeah, it was also you can
find the full news broadcast on YouTube from that.
Yeah,
nice.
That's awesome.
Have you seen the movie? Oh no, but I've heard that it's terrible.
It talks about the Catholic Church in it, so obviously it's bad.
Yep. They keep referring to him as a protester who suspiciously looks a lot like the director of the movie.
So good. It was so good. So we're here to talk about Clerks. The first one came out in 1994 when we were just wee boys, we young lads. This was nothing like I had ever seen before, because it was a movie about nothing. And it was really about just normal people living their lives, and it was a sort of a examination of it. Although that wasn't something that I thought about at the time. What did you guys think about when you saw Clerks for the first time? Anyone jump in?
It was a coming of age for me. Like, this was the first movie. Like, I watched anything that had big explosive action or big laugh out loud comedy and stuff, and like I was very much I want everything in my face, explosions, I want craziness, I want all this. I never in a million years would have thought I would sit down and watch a movie about just two guys talking. And I was so enamored and so glued to the screen the entire time that it just changed my perspective of what I find entertaining in movies. Like, it opened my eyes to writing. Like I said, I'll discuss this as we go on with each of the movies, but each of the movies has like changed me in one way. And the first one really changed like my passion about things. Like, if it hadn't been for Clerks, I never would have written Low Lives, and I never would have met any of you guys.
Yeah.
Like, it was watching that movie, and I dedicated that script directly to him too, for that reason. It's because like it's watching that movie made me want to write. It made me want to put all these crazy ideas I had in my head on paper, because if it worked for him, it could work for me. I
remember watching it and realizing, like, I didn't really like theater or anything before then, but that was pretty much what theater is, but on a screen. Like, it was a lot of dialogue, a lot of exposition, a lot of like character moments between things. And I think this is why my drama teacher at the time was sort of like pushing me into something, because she had heard us talk about Clerks, and I feel like she was cool enough that she had watched that movie, and she's like, you know what, maybe you'd like acting and maybe doing this. And I the first play I did was a satire in high school. Like, I was 16, and I was like, I didn't understand how amazing it could be just to have these conversations with another person on stage, and how that would affect people around them.
I love that you make that analogy about like how it drew you towards the theater, because I remember when Andrew sat down with me that one day at the bar and said, hey, I think I want to direct Low Lives. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I think I want to put it on like stage. And I was like, no, man, I wrote this as a movie. Like, I was going to film this as a movie. And he's like, no, let's do it on stage. I'm like, you can't do it on stage. He's like, it's two people sitting around talking. It was fucking made for the stage. And I was like, and then I started really replaying my script in my head. I'm like, no, he's 100% right. This was made for the stage. All right, let's do it.
It really, like, yes, it was made for a stage, and it was made for a stage for people to walk out, which I think was hilarious. We'll talk about that in different stories. What did you guys think, Shouser and Hawk?
Shouse.
Okay, yeah. It was one of the first sort of black and white films that I found myself really interested in. Like, when you're young, it's kind of hard to find yourself interested in artsy films. Like, you think of the black and white as really old or something that you can't really connect to, but I like the style. Like, I liked how it felt like by washing away some of that glitz and glamour that you would get with, full color and big sets and big, flashy scenes. You could focus entirely on the characters, and like the characters that were made for that movie were so interesting to listen to and to relate to, and like I think that I couldn't imagine anybody else playing those characters after seeing them in those movies. They just did such a good job of embodying those characters.
Mm-hmm. Hawk?
For me, it's.
Well, this was your second film too, right? Like,
no, yeah.
No, it was your first film. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah. Clerks
was the only one that saw it first.
Yeah,
I know. It was a perfect film for its time. I mean, we all came off of the 80s and that. And I think we came off as a very spoiled generation of moviegoers and that, because of the 80s and that, because we got used to like huge productions, and we watched how production values just soared and soared and soared. I think if you were a teenager like this, at the time, then like this really hit with you, and that it's not like I really noticed like the low end production of it, and that it's like and yet it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. And the fact the show's mentioned how it's black and white, and I'm sure that's put more than a few people off of seeing it, because as you said, like you see black and white, And especially at the time, you associated it with like either old films or experimental films and that, which were all just heavy on imagery and that. This was not that. This was like, as you said, conversations. And like I said, it was so timely because I think probably the number one show on television at the time was Seinfeld, which was a show that, pretty much transformed the dynamic of what a sitcom could be.
For sure.
Yeah, that it could be an entire episode about nothing. And this is, this movie, although things happen, it was largely about nothing. It was about a day in the life of a clerk who wasn't supposed to be there. And yet there are some scenes in it that still stick out with me today.
Mm-hmm.
How about
37.
the scene? There is one scene I always remember from it. It's when he hoists the gallon jug of milk onto the counter and he lets out the little, and the guy starts laying into him about his physical fitness. Just based on that little grunt.
Yep. Oh my God, so many people, especially if you work in retail, they have to comment about stuff. I love the people that are like, "Oh, there's no tag on this. It must mean it's free, right?" Yes, I've never heard that before. Thank you. That's
what I wonder now, because like Shasky said, like you grew up working in the video store part time. Like, has anyone else here had experience in either of those? Like, I worked at an adult video store for about 6 months. And I didn't even want to talk about the fucking people you see that come into that place. Jesus.
I worked at a video store in, I think, 95 for about 3 months. And, we had, obviously the regular cassettes. And we also had a porn section, too.
Yeah. Did it all.
Behind the glass beads.
Yes.
Actually, there was no glass. It was a couple of like partitions. That was about it. I do have a funny story about that, but I don't know if I can tell it on air.
Tell us afterwards and we'll say if it's cool next week.
Okay.
When I remember, like Brent said, like it inspired him to write, which I think is really cool because this movie really, it showed that anyone could write or make a film. And I think that was Kevin Smith's sort of mantra for this film. Is like, if other people can do it, I can do it as well. Did anyone else get that feeling after seeing that? Like, it really opened my eyes to so many things.
That was the thing, is like it's not even just what Clerks did. It was like, after watching the first 4 of his movies, he was the first director that I became like fascinated with, where I was like, I'm following your career. I'm following everything you do. Like, he was the first real, like, it was the first real fanboyism for me, was Kevin Smith and his movies. So, and hearing the stories of how he got it made and everything like that is like, that further inspired me in the writing area and wanting to be more creative and come up with things like that. Like, he's the first person who I became more invested in, like, him as a person than his movies.
Yeah. I can honestly agree, because the only real other filmmakers I really idolized was Steven Spielberg or George Lucas, right? At that point in my life in the early 90s. So getting to love Kevin Smith's films, plus like I was on the internet in the mid to late 90s, so I would be on the message board that Kevin Smith had as well. So he would interact with people, which was really cool. Not me, I didn't really type a lot. I just ended up reading a lot. But yeah. Also in the chat, there's a Farsh and Chops that I just want to know how that person knows Brent. Anyway, sorry, Shares.
Apparently they've cleared it up that they didn't. They just think I look like a fun guy.
Oh, okay.
No, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, who the fuck are you? I don't know.
You never know. Sorry, Shares.
I was just going to mention a couple of things. One of them about Kevin Smith's sort of approachability. Like one of the really cool things I enjoyed watching about him was his evening with Kevin Smith specials that he did. Yeah. Like where he would set himself up and just do like an entire evening of just question answer with the audience.
Yeah.
And he would just, people would ask him questions about his career, about his movie making and all that stuff, and he would answer. Like, I mean, I have the DVDs for some of those, and
I don't know if you've ever been to one of them. Like, they go long, like to the point where they're turning the lights on and off, telling him to stop it. We need to go home.
Yeah.
Because I went to go see the first one he did at
Roy Thompson.
Roy Thompson, yeah. I don't know. I think I might have told the story last time we were on. but how like I was up on the second balcony and they never got around to getting up to our section for questions, and I was so pissed because the one question I was going to ask him for is, can I have a hug?
Yeah.
And somebody ahead of me asked him that same question, and he, sure enough, was like, yeah, man, come on up, and gave him a hug. And I was like, that could have been me, you dickhead. But he got introed by Joey and Snake from Degrassi. And I remember, like, I was a huge fan of Degrassi too, so that was really cool. And knowing the show so much, I had to ask this one question after they walked off stage. Everyone's cheering for him when Kevin walks out. He's going crazy, and as soon as the applause starts to die down, he goes like, that's how you know you've made it in Canada, when you're introduced by Joey and Snake. And everyone starts laughing, and I just scream out from up in the second balcony, where the fuck is Wheels? And he turns and looks right up at me, and he's like, where the fuck is Wheels, guys?
Degrassi was awesome. A huge thing. Like, there was even a joke about it in Chasing Amy. You guys remember?
Did you guys catch the joke about it in Clerks 3?
No, there was a Degrassi joke there? Damn.
Big time.
Oh, shit.
I might have heard it. It sounds just
big like time.
Kevin Smith also directed Degrassi episodes. Like, he had Jay and Silent Bob showed up in one of them too, or a couple of them, which I think is funny.
The other thing that I was just going to mention was that Kevin Smith made movies like he was just like he wanted to make a movie with his pals, like with his buddies.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, whenever he made a movie, it was like he put his wife in the movies, he put his daughter in the movies, he put his friends in the movies. Every movie had, so it just felt like, you know, when you know, you get together with your buddies when you're younger and you just sort of act something out, or you get a video camera and you make a movie with your friends. So he did his stuff like that, and I think that's what made him more relatable as well when you watched his stuff.
That's a trait he and David Lynch kind of share. You know, David Lynch has this pool of actors, and that he always kind of puts in his films. Jack Nance, especially in that, you know, he was his best friend, and he put him in like everything he did.
Yes. Sorry, I lost my. I'm reading the chat.
I've been reading along with that too.
The chat's hopping tonight.
It's really funny, and it's really quite good. There's Farshin Chops is writing what our real names would be and what jobs they think we would have as it. I would love to be a comic book manager. It's not happening. So that's not for me. Oh, it would be for me one day, maybe.
Here, this is for you, Shouse, in the chat.
You would be Oscar, 23. What floor sign placer at McDonald's who studies pet shop management at college?
I love it.
You do look like the youngest one here.
Top right is Oscar's father, John. He is 59 and a funeral host director.
I feel like we're writing a Kevin Smith movie with Chad right now.
That'd be amazing. What else is there anything else about Clerks? Because Clerks was such and like it was so mind-blowing to me as a kid. Even now it's still amazing.
The last thing I would say about Clerks is that, you know, no matter as a teenager in your first job in retail, and that you really identify with all the characters, with those two characters, right? Because you have like a million stories about interactions with customers, some good, some bad, some weird, and you know, oftentimes they were pretty hilarious to you afterwards.
I don't know if you guys have seen Superstore, that TV show set in like a Walmart, but I don't think that would have been made if Clerks wasn't made, because that's pretty much what it was. And like, I worked at a future shop. I know the stories that happened, and man, that job would have been great if not for the customers. Kevin Smith, that's spot on. It's one of the most quotable movies I know.
See, I should have had this shit all displayed in the background before we started. So
yeah,
it's the full Clerk series plus the full Evening Kevin Smith series.
Yeah,
you got this one. You got this one too?
No, but I've just ordered that actually.
Too.
Nice.
I have all those. Yeah. Sorry, Huck.
Every time I tried to buy it, it was sold out. So
I actually bought this at a future shop.
I think you're just doing it on purpose now.
Go.
Yes, we are.
Without a movie like Clerks, you never would have gotten the 40-year-old virgin. Like, you know, considering like, you know, most of the 40-year-old version was set inside that like Best Buy future shop place that they were working, you know, and like he made the common workplace a compelling environment setting for a story.
Agreed. Let's move over to Clerks 2. It was announced in the mid 2000s that he would be coming back and writing and directing a sequel to Clerks, which no one expected because he had sort of moved away from the Askewniverse. The Bible was closed on it after Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. So he had said in media that he was not coming back to that universe. He wanted to explore himself as a director and a writer and do other things, which, that's fair. He was an up-and-coming director, if not an already established director at that point. But I believe, later when he talks about it, Jay was going through some issues, like drug issues, and he said, if you become clean, I will write a second Clerks movie, and we'll do it. And, to Jay's, credit, he actually, he was clean. He got clean.
Yep.
And he wrote Clerks 2. He got the whole crew back, and it came out in 2006. Another movie I got to see in theaters. I love seeing Kevin Smith movies in theaters because the people that go opening night are like Marvel fans. They are there to see this amazing experience, and to experience it with Kevin Smith fans. We'll talk about this when I get to Clerks 3. It's one of those things, like seeing a Marvel film with Marvel fans, seeing a Kevin Smith film with Kevin Smith fans is amazing. I love Clerks 2 when it came out. I know a lot of people didn't. It was divisive.
It's my favorite of his movies. Hands down, it's my favorite of his movies.
It's wonderful. I love it as well. Yeah. It has so much
I feel
heart.
It's the most complete of all of his movies, where like you don't have to know any of his others going into it to enjoy it. Like you don't need that continuity, and it's just so refreshing and entertaining and fun and touching and sad, and like it was the perfect movie for me.
It was perfect for me as well. The thing about these movies is that they sort of came out during these times of our lives. Like we grew up with them.
Yep.
So Clerks was about your 20s, and just sort of getting your life together, trying to figure yourself out. Clerks 2 is a continuation of that. That's your 30s, right? I was still in my 20s at the time, but I understood the growing up because I'd been growing up with these characters.
Mm-hmm.
I'll explain the irony of how I saw Clerks 2 when we get around to that.
Go for it. Go now. Do it.
So I got to see Clerks 2 early.
You were descrambling your TV.
No. I was old enough for the adult movies at this point. No, I worked at a restaurant that I was not super happy working at. It was not the greatest place in the world. I was not doing a job I liked doing. It was a job that I was good at, and I felt, I better stick with this and do this for the rest of my life. One of the perks of working here, though, was that the owner was friends with a lot of people from like the local newspaper. So we would constantly get movie passes to go to premieres and go for like early access stuff. So we got tickets, and a whole bunch of us in work all went to go see Clerks 2 about 3 days before it came out. And it was ironic because I watched that movie, and that movie changed my life. That movie, as I watched it more and more over the years and got to see the message is you don't ever have to be complacent. You don't ever have to feel like you're stuck in a place in your life. You can always do something. You can always find something new. You can always move forward. And it was that message that I got from that made me finally go, I hate what I'm doing in my life. I am miserable in my career. Fuck this. I quit. I'm going back to school, and I'm going to do what I love. And I went back, and I'm doing that to this day. Like I started my own business. I've been doing my own thing. I do the streaming. I'm basically like, I'm living my life in a way where I'm being responsible, but at the same time, I'm making myself happy, and I'm doing things that I love. And it never would have happened without that job. So thank you so much, Francis, for giving me tickets to go see the movie that made me quit working for you.
It's crazy because Dante was someone who was always trying to find happiness, and he had found this little slice, and he was holding onto it so tight, even though it wasn't something that really made him whole, right? And oh god, I can't remember the name of Kevin Smith's wife in the movie. Emma. Like, who hasn't been in a suffocating relationship, right? It was amazing to watch these. Everything felt so real. Again, like a different type of slice of your life, a different type of retail, but it's all felt real. And all these people had evolved a little bit, if not, at least a little bit emotionally and maybe not mature wise, but what did you guys, Hawk, thoughts on Clerks 2?
Clerks 2, I actually didn't get a chance to rewatch it. And I haven't seen it since like it came out on home release and that, but probably in the mid 2000s.
2006, yeah.
Yeah, it's to me personally, I was kind of on the downswing of Kevin Smith at this point in that. So
That's fair.
This movie didn't really make that big an impression, not the way Clerks the original did. And that, part of me, was still tied to that little small movie in that he made for $27,000. Thank you for Chouse for verifying that in black and white.
Yay,
and
Wikipedia.
And while his career, made the transition to bigger, like better production and that, I don't think the actual, I didn't really find that Clerks did. These characters going on to a sequel with a bigger budget, and definitely more prime talent in that with Rosario Dawson added to the cast.
She added so much to that cast. Like she had this brightness and warmth and light that just radiated off the screen. And seeing her with Dante, how could you not fall in love with her in that film?
And this was prime for her. This was like, she was, the hot thing in Hollywood.
Was she? I don't even remember what movie
she was the last person. She was the last person they went to for this movie. Like, because I recently watched the documentaries about the making, and they had a list of like 5 actresses that they went after hardcore first. They wanted Sarah Silverman, who turned it down because she was like, "I'll play it if I can play Randall." She's like, "But I'm not playing. I'm not playing the love interest. I'm not interested in that." They went to Ellen Pompeo, but then Grey's Anatomy had just blown up, so she was like, "No, not going to do it." They went to Bryce Dallas Howard, who initially said yes. Then she read the script and went, "Go fuck yourself."
Why?
Who else? I can't remember. There was the fourth one I can't remember, and then the last one they read the name Rachel Weisz and they were like, no, that's just not happening. Like
the Mummy was.
And then finally someone just came in and said like, "What about Rosario Dawson?" And they're like, "She'll never do it." And they handed her the script and she replied back. She was like, "As soon as I read Donkey Show, I said I'm in."
Amazing.
Her exact response was, "When am I ever going to get to do a movie with the Donkey Show?" As soon as I saw a Donkey Show, I was like, "I don't care. Clear my schedule. I'm in."
Shels, what did you think of? How'd you get into Clerks 2? What did you think of it?
So I saw Clerks 2 in the theater, and I remember, I think it just happened to be the time of, I mean, I think we've talked about this tons of times before on this show where you when you watch a movie at a particular time in your life, and I think Brent really emphasized it on what was going on with him when he saw this movie. I think when I saw this film, I was going through that kind of phase in your life where you feel like you know better than everybody else, and you're kind of like,
Randall days
sucks. Yeah. And so I right away went into this film thinking, they're just milking this franchise. He's just trying to, Kevin Smith's trying to get back to where he was. He's milking the franchise. So I think I went into it with a negative attitude to start. Mm-hmm. And so I remember watching it and not really enjoying it. And luckily though, I had seen it since. I've seen it since on DVD, and I enjoyed it a lot more after watching it a few years later. Like when I guess it all depends on the time of your life, what's going on with you when you watch it. And I had a little bit more appreciation for it. I still think it's my least favorite of the three of the trilogy. But it definitely has some amazing moments in it, and I love Rosario Dawson as well. She's absolutely incredible. But yeah, it just, I think it was when the movie came out, it just did not sink its teeth into me.
Mm-hmm. I think at that time I was it was post university for us, and I was sort of lost in general because I was at a job again, sort of like Brent, that I didn't really like, and I wasn't really enjoying, and it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So I don't think this made me look around, but I think it was always in the back of my mind. The fact that Randall knew what he wanted to do was very eye-opening, because out of everyone, I thought he would just be a slacker and just be like, you know what, I'm just gonna go with the flow. But the fact that he wanted to open the the quick stop again, and that's what he wanted, and that's where he enjoyed being. That was really something. And then seeing them all have their happy ending at the end of that movie, I did not expect, and I was happy that movie happened for them because I loved these characters when I first saw it as a teenager. And then we moved to Clerks 3.
Yeah. Thank God they all got a happy ending. Now we go on to Clerks 3.
Clerks 3.
Fuck.
Just
the gut punch.
So everyone who's in the chat who's listening to us in podcast form, we are going to spoil this movie. I know it just came out a week or two ago on, I almost said VHS, on video.
It would have been awesome if they put it out on VHS.
I would definitely buy it. My VHS player is still working. So we are going to spoil it, but this is your warning. So get out if you haven't seen it, watch it, and then come back.
Go watch it. It's worth watching.
It's well worth. Well, let's say that right now. Clerks 3. Nothing. I remember hearing this movie getting killed in the mid 2010s because Jeff Anderson saw the script and was like, "This is garbage." No, and so Kevin Smith threw out that script, and then they got in a big fight, and then Kevin Smith had a heart attack.
Yep.
And then he sort of reevaluated things, decided to write Clerks 3 about it. And then he made up with Jeff Anderson as well and a bunch of other people. Him and Ben Affleck ended up becoming friends again after a number of years. And then he decided that this was a good starting point for this last chapter of Clerks.
Did you see that in the mid 2000s, Clerks 3 was supposed to be a stage show? They were talking about putting it as a stage show.
Yeah. I remember that as well. So we got into Clerks 3. What did you guys think? Did you ever think this was gonna happen? Did you think this movie was gonna?
I thought it would. I knew it was an eventuality. Because I knew there's no way that he was done with those characters. I can't really say that anymore, but
it was such a happy ending at the end of 2. So I just assumed that would be it for some reason.
I just feel like they've always been the characters that when something big in his life has happened or when he hits a milestone in life, they are the characters that become his voice of how he's feeling at that time. So I knew that there was always going to be another one because I knew that once he hit probably around his 50s, he was going to want to revisit these characters again and explain what happens to them when you're coming to the end of your career or something like that. I actually didn't think he was going to do it as soon as he did. I thought it was probably going to be at least a few more years before he touched on it. But I think he's much the way that I've taken something from each of those movies that's affected me personally. He's created each of them because of something that's affected him personally. Like Clerks 2 was written basically and created because of him trying to rebirth his career and also like just after following the birth of his daughter, which was a big evolution in his life. So he wanted to write about these characters going through another evolution. And then he has the heart attack. And that was a big game changer in his life. So it's like, why not use that as a catalyst to revisit these guys and explain where they are based on where he is?
His podcasts were amazing, especially around the time of his heart attack, because it was when you face your mortality, there's so much that comes to light in your mind's eye. And I like the past 2 years, like the pandemic and seeing friends, come and go just in that time is really like, this is the perfect catharsis, I think, for me in a film. Like when I saw this, I saw it like I said earlier in an event at Cineplex. And the people that were there was only about 50, maybe 75 of us in the theater, but we were all laughing and crying. And it was such an emotional release for us the whole time, especially since we'd been indoors for such a long time, and like being out with that type of people, like it was incredible.
This movie was a gut punch. Like it was 100% a gut punch for me. I watched it for the third time today and I still can't get through the end without crying like a fucking baby. And I think I never even really associated it recently until you said that, and I think it's because of like the way this movie ends has been such it's revisiting the past 2 years of the pandemic for me, because I've lost 3 good friends of mine to COVID related issues or to accidents in the past 2 years. And I'm hitting that age now where that's going to start happening more. I'm going to lose more family members. I'm going to lose more friends. And at that stage of my life now, and like, so watching this movie where, sorry, spoilers, somebody dies at the end. And it's someone who I've been invested in for, longer than some of the friendships I have now. It was like, God damn it. Like, why are you doing this to me? Why are you making me feel these things I've been feeling again? But it just shows like the evolution he's had as a filmmaker is like, he just knows how to hit you now. Like,
yeah. Brent, not Brent. Oh my God. I was looking at Hawk and I said Brent because he was just talking. Hawk, I know you were on the outs as a Kevin Smith fan during 2006, and he had a couple films afterwards that a lot of people didn't watch, and
we will not discuss.
I saw Zach and Miri make a porno.
I like that movie,
and I like it.
It's got its funny moments.
It's enjoyable. It's not a Kevin Smith movie
film,
though.
No, exactly. No.
At this point, the last film I had seen of his was Red State, which I actually pretty liked.
Red State's really good.
Yeah,
we should do a Halloween episode and we'll talk about Red State. Yeah.
Oh Lord! So this is probably the first Kevin Smith movie I've seen since then, and a couple notable things.
I forgot to grab that as well.
Yeah,
this is the one I got for going to the premiere. They were supposed to mail them out to us 2 weeks after the show. We didn't get them until a year and a half later.
Damn.
You can tell he's really trying to recapture the vibe of the first movie in that, especially things he really scaled back a production on this movie. And that
agreed. Yeah.
I put this about at like maybe $1 million or $2 million to get made.
I can see that. A couple
production wise, right? And it shows a bit, just like it did in Clerks, and so that's okay. I didn't find it as funny as Clerks, obviously, and that because of the subject matter, but I did really appreciate how kind of tonally different it was, and how really it was an interior examination of himself he was playing out through this movie, right? Not just like the heart attack, but I mean like where you are at when you're when in your 50s, because these characters, the actors themselves are like over 50, and that I guess he was shooting for around late 40s.
I think it was mentioned that they were around like late 40s, like approaching 50.
Yeah. I had something to say about this, but I did really appreciate that. Even though it's like it was like tackling the hard issues and that, aging. Where are you going at this point in your life? At this point in the life, do you have a second shot or a second chance or a third act? So while it wasn't what I was looking for as far as funny from Kevin Smith, and that, it was actually exactly what I would expect from him on a more of an emotional level, and not more of a touching level.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. It wasn't as funny as the others, but I appreciate for that because I think it was more heartfelt than the other two.
I don't think we needed it to be funny. Like, I think at this point we needed it to sort of wrap things up for us. And I love the way that they made it into kind of like a flashback show without making it into a flashback show, right? Like this meta idea of saying, well, we're taking this, we're taking everything that's happened to these characters, and they're gonna write it into a script, and they're gonna make a movie. And so if you were a Clerks fan from back in the day, there were so many references in there to things that had happened in the previous movies, and it just gave you that nostalgia, right?
Yeah, it was really 100% a love letter to Clerks and how he'd seen these characters, right? And he said that this is a love letter to his life as a convenience store person, right? Farsh and Chops wrote something, and I want to read it. I think you four would be great in a movie. Maybe one of those car road trip films where you're on your way to somewhere hours away and shit happens on the way, a bit like Vacation or Dumb and Dumber, but you guys have higher IQs than those characters. I think that would be amazing.
I like it.
A road trip without the Stiflers.
Yes. This movie, like we were saying, there's a lot of heart in it, and the heart that I got in the second movie was a lot from Rosario Dawson, and what a gut punch in the first 4 minutes.
First minute of the movie.
Yeah, you see that she had died in 2006, which was the same year that movie came out, so it happened the year they got married. What did you guys think about having Rosario Dawson's character die and be
I was not expecting it going in. I thought
I gasped in theaters like all of us did. It was crazy.
When when I saw that Marion Gigliotti was coming back to play Veronica again in the movie, I thought for sure that what was going to happen was it was going to be a rekindled love interest between her and Dante, and it was going to be some kind of like emotional balance between like him loving Becky versus like this old flame. Maybe things are going well with Becky, and I thought that's where the story was going to go. So when that poster comes up 4 minutes in the movie that she's dead, I was like, oh, what the whoa, we're going here. Like,
yeah, there was a girl that was right behind me that went, what? And I was like, I felt the same way. It was shocking. Because oh, sorry, Hawk. Yeah.
Or I had wondered about how involved Rosario Dawson was going to be in this one. That I think it was a way of him kind of wanting to strip these characters back, especially the character of Dante in that, from the original, who was like, who was like the most unhappy guy going in that. He found happiness with Rosario Dawson at the end of 2. How could he go into Clerks 3 as like that happy guy?
Yeah.
But they took away his happiness so quickly. Like, he didn't have much time to experience it.
And then he had 16 years of pain, which is
exactly
brutal.
And like the other thing that I completely forgot about going into it too was the fact that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
I didn't, and it wasn't until like that line gets uttered later, like, and unlike you two guys, I have a family. I was like, that was when it clicked. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, she was fucking pregnant. Like, holy shit. Like,
where it clicked for me is when he's in the hospital with Randall and then he sees the ghost of them come in. And you can see that she's pregnant because she's holding her stomach. And I'm sitting there like, this is the worst. Like, this is my nightmare as a father, right? Like, losing your wife and maybe a kid. Not maybe. And a kid at the same like that. Like, I can't, like, it threw me. Like, it totally, like, made me step back, especially after watching Jersey Girl. Like, Jersey Girl is such a love letter to his daughter. Even though it's not a great film, I think it's actually not bad. As a parent, you appreciate it.
I should watch that again because I haven't seen that in a long time.
I'm one of the staunch defenders of that movie. I think it was a very well done movie. It's just so different from what everything else he's done. But I still think it was a wonderful, well-told movie.
It was really overshadowed.
We're not going to talk about Cop-Out.
It was really overshadowed by the J-Lo, Ben Affleck drama that was happening at the time.
And the other big film, Gigi, in that, which was
Geely,
Geely.
I do love that Rosario Dawson was sort of this Jiminy Cricket type character on Dante's shoulder, trying to get him to move on with his life. It was such a burden for him to have lost his daughter and his wife, and seeing Rosario Dawson come back and be like, you know what? You've had so many good years. You had your time with me. You got to turn that page and move on in the story of your life. That was, man, at this point in my life, that is such a good lesson for anyone.
You can't stay stuck.
You can't stay stuck. Exactly. What'd you guys think?
That being said, though, and that these characters and that I think there was a point he was trying to make about, like, when people tell you, like, oh, you're too obsessed with your pop culture franchises and that we're sick of it and that, and these are two guys entrenched in their late 40s and that, and they still, as with Randall and that, he's very much still ensconced in his pop culture references. Like the whole scene in the operating room and that, where he's basically describing the Mandalorian to the doctor doing like that heart procedure and that, inflating the balloon in the artery.
You know what's funny about that scene? She's in the Mandalorian.
I know, Amy Sedaris.
Yeah.
FYI, that was the Degrassi joke, was that whole sequence.
What?
The song that was playing that whole time is the Degrassi The Next Generation theme song.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
I didn't notice.
Whatever it takes.
That's hilarious. Oh, man.
And there's, I think, I'm not 100% sure, but as I was watching it again today and listening to it, towards the end of it, you can hear really softly a rap verse in the background, and I think it might have been Drake, given his affiliation with Degrassi.
Yes. That's hilarious. Sorry, what were we talking about? Mandalorian. Oh, the idea of being really into pop culture and all of that, and how it affects Randall's life, especially. I know all of us, like, we love our sci-fi. Like, look at the back of each of our, except for Hawk's rooms, you can see the love for.
That's why I got blurred.
Exactly.
I have the love for Dirty Laundry and Jumanji.
I got Dirty Laundry over there. And Randall decides, you know what? He wants to he wants his story to be told because he had never seen it before, and then he goes on this journey to create Clerks, based on his love of conversation, based on his love of pop culture,
or inconvenience as it's
inconvenience, or what was the other one? Convenience stories.
Yes, convenience stories.
Yeah, which weren't they both supposed to be the titles?
Inconvenience was for sure the original title. I don't know about convenience stories. I never heard that one.
Yeah. What do you think about Randall trying to make his mark in the life? Because I think especially at this point of our lives, that's sort of what we all want to do before we leave, right? Oh man, it got dark.
I know.
It's weird going back and watching it now because like knowing the trajectory of the characters and how essentially like he's had this near-death experience, which is like created this catalyst for him having a midlife crisis. Meanwhile, the entire time he has no idea that his best friend is going through an end-life crisis. Like, so it's weird going back and watching that now, knowing how the movie ends. But I just, because I kind of wonder, I was like, what trajectory is Kevin Smith going for by having him? I understand like the in joke of having the character that you created based around yourself to be doing exactly what you did, creating this character years ago and everything. But it's like, what trajectory was he trying to go with how the movie ends tying into that? So
I think it was mostly, how he edits it at the end to show his appreciation for Dante and how important he was with him. Yeah. Because originally the film was all about him and he let Dante know that. But, having seen his friend go through this same thing,
what I mean is like, is there some kind of introspective there where it's like, knowing how it ends, how he changes it to be about him, how was Kevin Smith trying to narrate that aspect compared to his life?
Go for it.
I think personally, okay, sorry. I think personally, it's probably about Kevin Smith's story along the way as he got more famous and was doing more projects and that, possibly it was about him burning bridges and that. We talk about how he just kind of recently rekindled his friendship with Ben Affleck and that.
Yeah.
So
I think he.
Yeah, and like I said, this Kevin Smith, not like as great as he was in that, I think he kind of reached his plateau in that where it was a little bit more of the same. I mean, Yoga Hosers, I think, is generally regarded as one of the worst piece of shit ever released. Right?
Even the Jay and Silent Bob
watch it.
Movie, the animated movie was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, like, he was productive. I mean, he did all sorts of stuff like podcasts and comic book men and that, it's like, I think he probably got a little of that kind of yes bubble going around him for a little bit. As gregarious a person as he is and open with like interaction with his fandom and that, being the person on top can be a little self-isolating in that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of burned some of his bridges along the way. And at this point in his life, he's thinking like, what am I leaving behind? And, is it just like,
you know what? Like you saying this is kind of like, it's sparked a thought in my head now that's kind of along those lines, but I don't think it was ever a matter of like him feeling too yes many around him. Mm-hmm. As it was, he got so caught up in making these art projects that he wanted to do that were so against the grain of what everyone else wanted to see, but he was making so many things that were about him, about what I want to do, about what I want to see. And I'm wondering if that is the parallel there, is like, it's the parallel to Randall going, I'm going to make the movie about my life, what I want to see. I don't care about all these exterior people around me. This is what I want. And then finally it got to a point where people just kind of went, like, hey, remember why we loved you to begin with?
Yeah, I could see that because he went off and did his Canadian sort of trilogy.
Yeah.
Because that was something he wanted to see and that's all the stuff he wanted to do. But what we loved about him was his introspectiveness about everyday people, and that's really where we are back.
It's kind of like Randall represents his descent into his creationist phase, and Dante represents his fans going like, no man, you made this was about us to begin with, remember? Like this was about connecting with us, not with you doing your own thing. Like,
yeah. And really, like, even those movies, like, they had his friends, but it was more, it didn't feel as genuine as the others. I don't know if that makes sense.
It always felt more of like who his friends were at the time,
and it always felt
seeing
a little
Justin
forced.
Long pop up in all of these movies now, and along those lines, and seeing like his daughter popping up in all of them now. It's like it's
too
like
much
an
of his
evolution. Yeah.
We did get a lot of cameos this movie. What did you like? We did get to see an evolution of all the people that he has met and worked with, and the people that appreciate him. We got to see Melissa Benoist, her husband who plays He-Man. I don't remember his name, but he was also in the Supergirl show.
Chris Wood, I think.
Chris Wood, you're right. We saw
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
What is the Sarah Michelle Gellar Freddie Prinze Jr. connection though? That I didn't get.
They're married.
Yeah.
I mean, well, what is their connection? Because almost all of them had a connection to Kevin Smith.
She's friends with him for some reason. I remember that they're friends.
Is it the new Teen Wolf thing?
Maybe.
Is he involved in that?
I don't know.
He's had his hands in a lot of different pies along the years. So
because I mean, like I recognize obviously Ethan Suplee, Ralph Garman for obvious reasons, Ben Affleck for obvious reasons, the Impractical Jokers were all there for obvious reasons. But it was like that. It was the Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar. I was just kind of like,
I remember them.
Those seem like so out of place.
They've talked about being friends, and he's been a big Buffy fan for such a long time. That's why he got into Veronica Mars.
Right.
I remember.
I love that it was Freddie Prinze Jr. playing himself, though.
Yeah.
I liked Bobby Moynihan was in there just auditioning for Silent Bob.
Well, I love that too because Bobby Moynihan used to do the Kevin Smith impression on SNL all the time.
Yeah. It was awesome.
What's the Fred Armisen connection?
Oh yeah, that too. I don't.
Yeah, that's another one. Maybe just because Fred Armisen is in everything now.
That's fair. So we do get. Where did I want to go with this? We do get this movie. We get and then Dante ends up having a heart attack and he ends up dying, which was a shock to everyone in our theater. And he, then Randall re-edits his movie and shows that the best times of his life was with his best friend. Obviously, he was the Luke. What did you think of Dante's ending? A very sad ending, but also sort of beautiful.
I at first didn't like it because I really thought the movie was building up to him finally letting Becky go and going back to the world. And then as I rewatch it now, I realize I was like, no, I'm like, this is him basically like going like, despite everything that's going on, he knows what's made him the happiest in life. And it was being with Becky and he knows that Randall's going to be fine without him, and those people are going to be just fine without him. Yeah. And he's like, "I'm doing this for me. Like I'm getting my third act."
He says, "I trust the director."
Yeah.
Oh, what a beautiful line! There's so many good lines in this, and not in a funny way, like just beautiful, written lines. Hawk, what'd you think of this? And for Dante?
I mean, it was a bit of a surprise, but then again, like they talked a lot about the stats of heart attacks at the beginning of the film, and not the Widowmaker, because it claims 80% of people, and obviously Randall escaped it, and that he was one in 5,
just like Kevin Smith.
But then there's also 4 other people in that, so I mean, like these things kind of happened in threes and that. Also, I mean, it's like he's such a classicist as far as films and that. It's like 3, usually it's the end of a series.
Yeah.
And the finality of death really kind of puts the nail in the coffin, I guess I could say. But
Clerks 4, Dante's Return.
Yeah, he did go on to say that he wanted to revisit the story later on, but I think that might have just been him trying to hide this ending in the press.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Although I could see them doing the retirement age like we all said earlier.
I don't want to see another one without the 2 of them, though.
That's true.
I definitely don't want to see another one if it's like Elias and Randall. And if he found some way to work Dante's ghost into it, I trust him to create. I trust him to create something that I will enjoy.
But it takes something away if they go that route,
That's why I don't want it to happen. Yeah. I trust that if he does it again, he's doing it with the right intentions and will do a good job of it. But I hope he doesn't.
Same. Yeah. Let's talk about the Clerks themselves. Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson, because those 2 carried this movie. They carried the first movie. The second one had Rosario Dawson a lot in it, and it had Elias as well. We'll talk about Elias in a bit, but these two, it was the heart of their relationship that really pushed this whole movie. And the acting, like, you never expect, like, these two guys are just sort of regular people. They're not actors with the drama. But
Brian O'Halloran came from a theater background.
He did. I like that joke in the auditions. But what did you think of their acting? Because I think it's their best out of anything I've seen them 100%.
Let me hop in on this one really quick, because the sequence right before Dante has his heart attack, like that whole sequence where he's finally confronting Randall and explaining, like, it was like, I was just watching it, like, I couldn't look away because he was just so, and it almost, he did such a good job of building up the energy in that scene, that when he did have that heart attack, it felt like it fit there perfectly. Like it within the whole realm of his acting, it did not come out of nowhere. He got to the point where he just hit a point where he couldn't go any further, and he had that heart. But the acting, I thought, was amazing.
Yeah, Brian O'Halloran, that sequence was so good, and it was
so good.
It was so tragic because you could see the heartbreak in everything he's talking about, and the fact that he wants his best friend to see him for being his best friend, and he was his constant companion this whole time, and then Randall was so self-absorbed this whole time just because of that heart attack that he had.
Even in that sequence, like, Jeff Anderson absolutely slayed. I watched back this time I watched it today specifically to watch his reactions to what's going on, and I'm 100%, I'm like, I put myself in his position where I've done that, where, like, I've been selfish about something and someone's called me out about it, but I'm so fucking proud that I don't want to admit that you're right. Fuck you. No, you're being an asshole right now. I'm right to be this way. And you see that conveyed on his face the whole time, where he never, even though he's talking about heavy shit, he's talking about, hey man, my family got taken away from me. And you see him wanting to be like, you're right. But no, I have to fucking stand strong in my stance here. You're the asshole, not me. Like, and he conveys that just through his eyes so beautifully.
Hawk.
Same. Brian O'Halloran more so than Randall or Jeff Anderson. That he really was like the highlight as far as acting in this film. It's that speech at the end, and that it's another point that I think Kevin Smith was trying to make is, how do I put this? That the two of them have become so complacent in that friendship, and that, and that in their roles within that friendship, where it's like, it's like, you're the guy getting, you're the producer, you got to do this and this and this. I'm the one writing and directing this movie,
which is sort of their real life relationship too, right? Dante was the one that got things done, and Randall just sort of shot his mouth around.
Yeah, and the fact that at their age that he was still kind of taking that relationship for granted, and then all of a sudden getting that big blow, boom. Yeah. Like your go-to guy, your best friend, is leaving.
Yeah, Brian O'Halloran was really a standout, but I will also give it to Jeff Anderson because his speech during the funeral was heartbreaking, and the sobs in our theater when we were seeing it, and then when he said, "You're not even supposed to be here today."
Be here today.
Oh, right at the
even
end.
just like the scene in the hospital when he's describing to him, like, this movie was always about you. You were always the star of my movie. Like, I, even right now, I'm welling up.
Yeah.
Like, I can't get through that scene without fucking, and that fucking song. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That song that plays through that. It's just like, God, he's gotten so good as a director now, learning how to like really hit you emotionally.
The music in this movie is amazing. Like
I love it because the whole vibe of the music, I was thinking about that watching it today. The whole vibe in the early, like, with all of the fucking hard ska music that was playing, I thought it was so perfect because it wasn't really that era of the 90s, but when we think back to the 90s now, that music fits perfectly to what we remember. So it was almost like he wasn't playing a soundtrack of the times, but he was playing a soundtrack of his memory of the times. And I'm like right there going like, yeah, I think I listened to this shit back then too.
it really, yeah. Sorry, go Hockey.
The part that got me was when he was going to play the movie for him and that, and it's like he basically playing him like the original Clerks movie and that, and it's like I was like, oh, they're not going to show like, the stuff that they actually shot. They're just going to play Clerks in the frames. Then I realized we're not watching a movie. We're watching memories happen.
Yeah.
He's watching the movie of his life.
Yeah.
That's heartbreaking.
And that seeing him in that theater alone and watching it, and then all of a sudden she popped up beside him, and that
oh my God, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Like,
The
one thing I didn't know, and I feel bad about for being such a big fan of like Clerks and all that, is I wondered why Caitlin Bree was in the movie, and I did not realize that the actress who played her passed away.
Yeah, a couple of years ago she passed away from
7 years ago, 2015. I had no idea.
Yeah. Very sad. I'm gonna go back to the music because the first song was "Welcome to the Black Parade" by My Chemical Romance. Which is about death, and it's about the experience in the afterlife, which is sort of what Becky's character went through, and the reflection of life. So he foretold the whole movie with one song right at the beginning, which was already a montage of everything we had known about Clerks. That's as a film nerd or as just a fan of films, like that's amazing film work, right? Oh, Kevin Smith. Also, like the whole soundtrack was amazing. They had that Pearl Jam song during the funeral, which kills me.
Which one was that?
Or was it? Is it just It's Just Breathe.
Oh, okay.
I do want to talk about some secondary characters that showed up because I know we got heavy, but Elias is back from 2, and we at the end of the movie we see that Elias ends up becoming the second clerk. He takes not takes over Dante's place, but he gets to be the Padawan to Randall's master.
Jedi master, yes.
What did you think of his fall from Christianity?
The costume changes
into Satan.
This I'm gonna say is why, unfortunately, Clerks 3 is gonna be is probably destined to be my least favorite of the 3 overall. As much as like I love a lot of work he did, the secondary characters in this movie just didn't do it for me.
Elias wasn't.
I liked some of the Elias stuff. Like I thought his performance was great.
Yeah,
he really got a good laugh out of me. But I just felt like the storyline of his character was just, it didn't do anything for me. And the whole insertion of him having his own Silent Bob just because Kevin Smith wanted to put his daughter's boyfriend in the movie. I was like,
is that why he was there?
I assume that's
The blockchain is he is Harley Quinn Smith's boyfriend, who started staying with them right before the pandemic started and then ended up living with them through the entire pandemic. So he's now become like a part of his universe, putting him in movies and TV shows and shit.
The first time I saw him act was in Scary Stories, Tell in the Dark, that movie.
Yeah.
He was good in that movie. Elias I enjoyed. I think his purpose there was purely for that NFT thing, and I think the NFT thing is gonna, since it's already failing in real life, I don't know how that's gonna age with this.
Yeah.
I meant to look that up today. I bought that sweater, the Chuli's gum sweater.
Yeah.
But I want to know whether or not I can get one of those NFT kites.
Oh my God, the Jesus kite. Thoughts on Elias? He was a big part of 2, so it was nice seeing him back.
Yeah, he was good comic relief.
In times when he did.
He was okay comic relief, not even really the funniest in that. And I kept kind of put off. It's like, okay, was he goth now? Is he like, is he okay? He's Satanist now. What is he at? What is he going for?
Yeah, he just kept going.
I really like Silent Bob in this movie. I really like they gave him a lot to do, and I feel like Jay was really funny, but I feel like he was really phoned in this movie.
I was gonna ask what you guys thought about the R2D2 and C-3PO of these films.
I feel like he didn't have enough to do, and Silent Bob had just enough to do.
I think Jay was the right amount, because I think if he was in it too much, it would have overshadowed Dante and Randall.
Yeah. This was, it's, again, this was like those two characters like took off on their literally their own adventures and that, and it got crazy, like, bit gimmicky, but bit crazy. Kevin Smith explored his fandom through them. This was them scaled back to those two guys and that hanging outside the store and that, the ones you never thought would go anywhere.
I do love the joke of when they're like hiring each other to be them actors in the movie, and he just utters that line. He's like, "I'm not about to make regular people famous," and in walks Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah. I think my favorite Jay and Silent Bob bit, and it's also a Jay Muse bit, is when they do the dancing sequence and they make Randall leave while he's filming it, because that happened in real life. He couldn't dance in front of anyone.
That's true.
Hey, Steven, I'm recording a podcast right now. Why are you texting me?
Oh. But yeah. Any other final bits? Any funny bits you want to mention that we didn't talk about? I think we sort of hit all the
funny bits,
points.
but like there was a couple things I really wanted, like, because you kind of just touched on one about like the callbacks to the behind the scenes stuff from the original about like, you know, him sending everyone to go inside. There's another one I don't know if anyone noticed, and this is something that was only really brought up on the Clerks X documentary.
Okay.
The scene of Randall and Veronica in the video store, and Randall has like the really dark eyes. That was apparently the first scene that they shot in the entire movie, and they had absolutely no idea how to do makeup for movies. So they made him look like this goth guy, and that was the backstory of the original filming. So I loved that when they shot that scene in this, they made him look all super goth in that because of that reason. I was like, the attention to detail to recreating was amazing.
There's this one scene that's kind of stuck out. It's so it's like stupid, but like it kind of shows you like, you know, where they came from and like what's happened now. And that Clerks, you know, is like was part of that, you know, underground weed culture, and that, you know, that was, you know, there in the 90s and that. But now it's like legal, it's everywhere, everybody has a store, but you know, they still can't get out of their own heads and that. So it's like when they, you know, want to sell some weed and that, they're still doing it like they did in the 90s, you know, a little close up and that, make it look in case, you know, cops watching and that, you know.
I like how even calls it out, that's how we did this in the 90s, son.
It's so dumb, but it's some reason it made me laugh like crazy.
Show us any last things.
It was just like a fitting end. Like I was really happy to see it. It was shocking. The what they decided to do with the characters was shocking to me, but I like where they went with it.
It felt right.
I like how they closed it off. Yeah.
I think that's a good way to end this podcast. Although I could ruin it by saying I love seeing Lando in real life for the first time from the animated series. That was funny. Oh man, what an adventure! Like I love Kevin Smith movies, and I think I love that he's evolved back. I don't know if he evolved back, but he went back to what we loved about him, and that was looking at ourselves.
He's smart enough to know when to go back to his grassroots.
And it's not him just picking up characters that we love. It's him telling a story that we appreciate in our moments of life as well. And I think that's what a good filmmaker does. He's
like, this movie left me wondering, you know, like after the effect the first movie had on me over time, the effect the second movie had on me over time, I can't help but wonder, like, what effect is this movie in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah.
What kind of ways is this movie going to alter my life? Because, and I know it will, like, I know that there's going to be something. I'll have a heart attack one day, and this movie is going to be what opens my eyes to life after that. Like,
yeah. Oh man, it's awesome. Maybe we'll revisit Kevin Smith in the future. But I think we're good right now. I think we're good with what we're talking about for Clerks.
We're in a good place.
We are.
Yeah.
Like Rosario Dawson and Dante. Oh, sorry about that. Anyways. Thank you, Hawk. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Shells, for coming on and talking about Clerks 3 and the whole trilogy in general. Like, it's great, like, being a Askewniverse fan and sharing it with you guys. And I know we've shared our love of it. I hope the people out there on the internet that are watching or listening to us get a chance to watch this movie. And maybe it'll spark something, and maybe you'll go back and watch all 3 of them, because I think they all are still rewatchable, even though there are some jokes that have aged a little bit in the first 2. So for Hawk, for Brent, for Shows, thank you guys for coming in and listening. We'll see you guys again in a couple weeks. Goodbye. Well, that's it for us this week on Geeks with Kids. If you want to get a hold of us, you can send us an email at podcast@geekswithkids.ca.
And don't forget to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/geekswithkids. Follow us on Twitter at geekswithkidscn. Check out our pics on Instagram at geekswithkids. And you can find all of this good stuff on our website at www.geekswithkids.ca. So if you like what you hear, why don't you hit that subscribe button and leave us a comment. This podcast can be found on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, and your favorite podcasting app. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.